All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Brian Hogben, and this is my good friend, co-worker, teammate, partner extraordinaire in mortgages,
Chelsea Bedard.
Chelsea Bedard. And what we are doing today is the Positive Podcast. I don't know how that's going to show up, but we'll try it out. So what is this about? Why do we decide to do it? So the Positive Podcast. So really, three things that we are passionate about and we love sharing with people are, number one is personal development. So we're always reading books.
Yeah, reading books all the time.
All the time. And I love learning. Chelsea loves learning as well, too. So we thought we could debate some of the best ones that we have. Personal finance, obviously, for those who know, I'm the owner of a mortgage company involved in a tax business, private lending business, real estate. Chelsea is involved in a lot of those financial services as well, too. And we love finance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we wanted to share some tips and tricks on when it comes down to personal finance, mortgage options, things like that as well, too. And last thing, what's the last thing that we have in common, Chelsea?
Our 7-year-old children.
7-year-old children, yes. And we just wanted to share some fun things. And I don't know if you want to take advice on this part of the podcast, but I've got a 7-year-old daughter who's the light of my life, Lila. And we try to do the best that we can. Wendy and I raising that little girl. And then you have a 7-year-old ninja.
Yeah, pretty much. A 7-year-old Dennis the Menace, who is sometimes the light of my life.
So I guess what we promised you was honesty on this one. So yeah, so we hope you enjoyed. So what we'll do is we'll jump in and get started on this. And what was the first book that we decided to look at this time around?
So Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Really eerie, but interesting. Yeah, lots of positive points from it, though.
What's eerie about it is if you actually download it on Spotify. Did you listen on Spotify?
No.
I was trying to do my notes the other night on it, and I put it on Spotify, and it's actually got a really creepy voice for the devil. So, but what it's about, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, right?
Yeah.
You've read that 1,000 times?
Yeah.
I've read Think and Grow Rich, amazing book. But what I loved about this one here is that Napoleon Hill ended up writing it in the 30s, sat on it, his family sat on it, and they didn't publish it for 70 years. Do you know that?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I just love his take on, it almost seems like he was seeing into the future.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Well, and I know because he talks about public school system, controversial, talks about the church, controversial stuff as well too. The fact that, I think they were worried that in the 30s he was actually talking to the devil.
Yeah, I think he was.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, maybe. Okay, anyways. What was sort of and this book, I've read it a couple times, cover to cover. I highly encourage anybody to read, but what were the sort of takeaways for you on it that you got?
Okay, so a couple quotes that I liked was, there is a solution for every legitimate problem, no matter how difficult the problem may seem, which I do believe. So
cool.
That, and every temporary defeat, failure, adversity, there is a seed of equivalent benefit. I also strongly believe that too.
Say that again.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Every temporary defeat, failure, and adversity, there is a seed of equivalent benefit.
Oh, that's cool. That reminds me, it's just kind of I remember reading, I think there was a quote in there just basically about how, kind of says how failure is good, right? Every time you fail is good.
I know, it's hard to remember when it's happening though.
Sometimes, sometimes you got to remind yourself a little bit.
And then it's a part of the journey and finding true success. So the journey to me, I don't know, it's so hard during when it's happening, but that's a part of your story for success. Yeah,
I think it's really cool because it kind of makes you reprogram yourself, right? It's almost like looking forward to shitty things happening. Really hard to do, right? But when we've had, in our business, you lose a client or you lose a staff member, you lose a teammate or somebody goes, right? You're kind of how is this happening for me right now?
I know.
Why is this good?
What can you learn from it?
Right?
Yeah.
And I find that, that's where the fruit is. That's where the growth is because as soon as you get over the fact that something shitty is happening, you get to move towards the learning.
Right. Yeah.
I liked how the devil talks about how he takes over your mind, right? And he says that and it's all out of fear, right? So when he's interviewing the devil, he's talking about, how do you control 98% of the population? And he's saying he does it through, I think it's 6 things. He says fear of poverty and fear of death are the 2 most common ones. But he says other ones are criticism, ill health, loss of love, and old age.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely, I don't know, like when I was reading it, I felt like it was speaking to me because you can relate to all of those moments too.
Not me. I'm never getting old. Forget it. Or ill health. I'm never. No. Yeah. So, and then the other one I love, he ends up saying is drifting. I thought it was like a Vin Diesel movie, Fast and the Furious at first, like drifting, but it's what he refers to as kind of like really making uneducated, poor decisions.
Especially multiple times, and then the devil gets you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I thought was super cool because he talks about smoking.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And, and this is, I just thought like Napoleon Hill is such sort of like a future forecaster because like he's talking about cigarettes in the 1930s. And in the 1930s, this is prior to when it was really addictive, right? Like, we hadn't, probably knew that they were bad, but, all the results of cancer hadn't come out yet, all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying that the devil uses cigarettes in the 1930s to hook people.
So they're not free thinkers.
Yeah.
So they use cigarettes and liquor to break down the power of persistence, and they destroy the ability to concentrate, which I hate to say it, but I think of my dad, right? How many times I have to go out for a smoke, right? Like your day is just constantly interrupted.
True.
Or even with drinking, right? If you need that clutch at night, like you can't, I don't know, like do what you want to do because your mind's altered.
Well, I think it's the deep thought that gets tough, right? And I think with cigarettes as well too, because you know what, that's been one of my vices that I hate to say over the years, from time to time. Not now, but from time to time. And but it's true though, because if you go for a cigarette or if you go for a drink, it takes you out of deep thought. Mm-hmm. And if you're in deep thought is where you're able to actually like make tough decisions on business or work or friendships or things like that, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you got to go out and have a smoke every 10 minutes.
And I think how it's related to even like with your pocketbook too, right? You're spending your money on that instead of what you want to be doing to be a free thinker.
Unless you get cheap smokes.
Go to the reserve.
Right? Okay, I don't know about that. Okay, I should stop. We won't make a plug for cheap smokes here. It's a bad idea. Cool. Yeah, any other points on that you had for the...
Yeah, I mean, if you can just like avoid drifting, then you're free to face failure and make a clear, sound decision. I also wrote down the 7 principles to attain spiritual, mental, and physical freedom from this book. So definite purpose, mastery over self, learning from adversity, controlling environmental influence, time, so giving more time to positive rather than negative habits, harmony, and caution, so act before you think. That can be a hard one.
Act before you think or think before you act?
Think before you act.
Done the latter. That hasn't worked out well for me. But yeah, totally. I think that's good. I think that's where I like the definite of purpose, right? Because he ends up saying, like, if you have a definite purpose in your life, a lot of the drifting and a lot of the bad decisions that you can make just won't come into play because you're committed to the outcome, right?
And I feel like I can like see this in some clients that I help with mortgages too, which I hate to say it, but I can see it like when I look at applications.
Well, let's talk about that. So like when it comes down to mortgages, I think, in the mortgage world as well too, like we see lots of people who have drifted in their finances, unfortunately, right? Or people that haven't made payments. So like, I know you had one just recently where someone had made their payments for how long? Like they had made mortgage payments for
like a few months. I actually had one the other night too, very similar situation, and I'm trying to get a hold of the client and they're getting their nails done, but their mortgage payments aren't made. Like it's just...
Okay. Well, let's not judge.
No, not judging.
Okay, nails need to get done too, I guess. But I think that speaks to the drifting because sometimes when you think, when you make choices, right, and you make choices with your finances, you don't think that you're doing anything wrong, right? Like I know it's kind of like you just don't want to face the music. You don't want to face the drift.
Right.
Right? Like it's kind of like how many people do I always see at the keg? I love the keg, my Billy Miner pie. I love the keg. But how many people are probably in a bad financial situation?
That's true.
And then they go out for dinner because like, kids, let's just forget about it. Let's go have a nice dinner.
No, I get that.
Right?
I get it. It can bring the family together and connect. I think too, it's like these clients, they thought, I don't know, they were thinking like they were a bad person because their credit was bad or they weren't making the payment. And I would never want people to think like that. There's always advice, options.
It's true. Yeah, that is interesting, because like like it's almost like you want to hide under the covers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can't see me. I haven't ended up paying my bills, and I don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
So, and I bet you a lot of people who like, if you're behind on your mortgage payments, you've got the bank calling you saying we're going to take your house. So probably the last person that you want to call is the bank,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Because if they're the ones creating the pain, so you don't want to go into the pain to get more. So like, what did you do in this case?
So I was just calling my database and saying, hey, how are you? Your mortgage is coming up for renewal. And then they got back to me on a Sunday, actually. And they just said, we're grateful you called. We're actually in a situation.
See, that's funny. So they weren't even going to call you.
No.
And these were clients that I'm sure you did a good job for. I've seen your Google reviews.
Yeah, I think so. Like,
right? So it's not a matter of, so it's like people are kind of like, in this case, they were just embarrassed about their situation. And because you had a great relationship with them, they didn't want to call you because they were embarrassed.
They were embarrassed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if they didn't call you, what do you think would have happened?
Oh, they would have lost their house for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what did happen? They didn't lose their house.
No, we ended up.
Because this is the positive podcast
Yeah,
here, Chelsea, not the lose your home,
there was
everybody
a
get to the
solution.
devil and die podcast.
Yeah, there was a solution. So we ended up like refinancing them. We got their mortgage brought up to date. Their payments were actually way more affordable than what they had, like their debts and their mortgage. So they were really grateful in the end. And I'm going to check in on them like every couple months just to make sure that they're good and they're on top of everything. Because I said, like, you can't hide anymore.
That's good to know. What's kind of like, I think there's something, you know, when it comes down to the realm of personal finance here, there's a lot of lessons here, right? Like, I think the lesson is like, make sure, and I think it's almost like a life lesson, make sure you call for help, right? Like if you don't call for help, I had a manager one time who used to always do this. Like it was almost like we're playing dinky cars together. That, maybe I shouldn't say that, but okay. We'll cut that. Too bad it's a live thing. But anyway, so he would do this with his hands and he would say, Brian, imagine two cars driving right towards each other. He said and he's like, this is conflict. This is something that's going to go wrong in your life. And he said, it's way easier to turn here than it is to turn here.
Yeah.
Right? So I think like if you're not making mortgage payments and, you know, the sheriff is at your door and you're getting kicked out, it's like you're here and it's too late to turn. So kind of call for help, try to make the turn sooner, right?
Yeah. I've seen this too in other industries, like even with my past career, people would say, no.
What was your past career?
Dental hygiene. No, I don't want to get that cavity fixed. But then they, again, like you look at what they're wearing and they have all the name brands and they look like $1 million and you're just like, oh, this is your health, right? So you have to go back to like educating them, making sure that they, you know, they feel heard, but like what's more important to you, right? Like your health or optics.
Interesting, right?
And that's a really tough one too.
Well, it's funny because that goes back to how the devil, according to Napoleon Hill, influences
Vanity.
you. And fear, right? Fear of loss of social approval, fear of not looking good, right? Fear of loss, all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if fear's driving the bus,
Yeah.
who the hell's riding shotgun, right? So cool. What I was going to say too about that is like, because not all lenders are created equal as well. So I think in your case, how long they hadn't made a mortgage payment for
3 months.
3 months. So it's important to remember too, a lot of lenders will foreclose sooner than 3 months. Like technically speaking, if we had a private mortgage lender is allowed to start a foreclosure power sale process within 14 days.
Yeah.
So a lot of the major lenders will have anywhere from 60 days to 90 days before they start like an actual foreclosure power sale proceeding. But very important because especially in this market right now, if you have one of those lenders and it's 14 days, you don't have time to wait.
No, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, thank goodness you reached out because you're great at what you do. You're proactive, you're calling people. But had you not reached out, they could have been on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy it all worked out for them. So.
Me too. A win for the positive podcast,
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
The PP. P. Now let's go to the last P. Oh my God.
Parenting.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
This is
So
an interesting one.
this one's awkward for me, Chelsea. I'm not going to lie. You know what? I lean on Wendy a lot for parenting. I think she does a great job. A lot of times I think I'm screwing things up. But I'm trying to do my best. But I love the stories that we share on it. So, you know, the one that we were talking about is just the other day. Lila said to me, she woke up in the morning, I love the morning snuggles, right? Like, I don't know if maybe it's different for the girl than the guy.
No. Yeah, we snuggle in the morning.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So she comes in and she's feeling all sucky and she's just like, Dad, I don't want to go to school today. And I'm like, oh, are you not feeling well? She's like, no, I'm fine. I'm like, what's the matter? She's like, I just feel like I need a day off. I'm like, you're fucking 7. I didn't say that. She actually still thinks stupid is a bad word. That's another problem that I have. But like, what would you do in that situation? Like, I'm just like, you feel like you need a day off. And my internal dialogue is firing, going, you're 7 years old. Like, you don't have a clue right now. But
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Has Isaac ever said that?
Totally.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, his line, it could be like Monday to Friday. Every day, like, is it the weekend? And I'm like, no, yesterday was Sunday. You just had a day off. Today's Monday. It's time to get ready. But like, I don't give him an option. I'm like, and I have to really break things down for him. Like, no options. It's just get dressed, meet me at the table. We're doing some reading. And that's it. I don't even care. I don't even like entertain it.
Oh, that's cool. So it's just like go straight into the routine.
Yeah, like I ignore you. You didn't say that.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think too, it's kind of like that. I've seen some memes or some videos where the kid gets hit in the head with like a soccer ball, and then how you, not that I'm endorsing this either, okay, but like where if you go, oh my God, are you okay? And then the kid starts crying, right? But if you're just like, I saw one where the kid got hit in the soccer ball, and the dad went up and go, you staved it, you stopped the ball, and their kid's like, yeah, I did, right? So, but. Yeah, I don't know. I said to Lila, I started, and I don't know whether I go too far sometimes with parenting. Do you ever? I like your, just do it.
I don't know. I'm definitely like, I know I'm different than my parents. Like, I'm tough love for sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. I like that. Well, Wendy and I sort of always have the idea that we're going to explain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I ended up saying to her, I said, hey, babe, you know what? Like sometimes I don't want to go to work. Mm-hmm. And there's days where I don't want to go to work, but I'll tell you, when I go to work, I see people that I like at work, and I see my friends, and then I feel good about it, and it actually turns out to be a great day. And I said, that probably happened to you as well, too. And I said, sometimes, like, if I were to stay home, I'd probably end up feeling bad or feel a little bit guilty, and I might end up feeling worse about myself.
Right.
And Lila's 7, she said, no, I'd watch YouTube all day, and I'd be fine. So.
Yeah. I think, like, Ollie will be more on like the lesson. He's more calm and try to figure it out. Like, why do you feel like that way? And here's the lesson. Where I'm just like, school's your job. Like, you're going to school.
School's your job. I like that. No room, no option, right?
No.
Again, this is not an endorsement for good parenting practices on the Positive Podcast, but ideas, right? And I think there are lots and lots and lots of ways to parent, right?
Yeah, and every kid's different, and boy versus girl. So.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, if you guys have ideas on books to look at, please let us know. If there's books that you want us to talk about that you think have been awesome, change you, let us know. If there is personal finance tips that you're looking at, let us know. And any parenting criticism, just keep it to yourself. Okay? That's fine. I'm just kidding. Let us know. And thanks for tuning in.